everybody, welcome to a Monday night edition of the Glen Kuiper Show here on my YouTube channel. Thanks for checking in and joining me tonight on what is a very event-filled day around the Bay Area sports and around the San Francisco Giants. And we are going to cover all of that. We'll talk tonight about Bob Melvin being let go after 2 years. We're going to kind of recap this 2025 season. The good, the bad, and the ugly is what we'll like to say. We'll take a quick look at the final leaderboards, who won the batting titles, and that kind of good stuff around Major League Baseball. And then we'll get into the postseason stuff with the 4 wild card series starting tomorrow. So we'll go over each matchup, 2 in the American League, 2 in the National League. So we got a very, very busy show, and certainly on a night when something, I don't know, unexpected or whatever you want to call it with the firing of Bob Melvin. I want to hear what you guys have to say and how you feel about what happened. And so your comments are always important, and they will always get read as much as I can. But tonight, even more so. I'm curious to see how everybody feels about the firing of Bob Melvin. So we'll get to all that in just a moment. You know the drill. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, join me on the comment section. And I'd like to check in with you guys to see exactly what you are thinking. So before we get the show going, let's hear from our sponsors. Tilden Properties, as an investor, one of the best places to put your money is California's multifamily real estate. By investing with Tilden Properties, you'll see quarterly dividends and equity buildup in the real estate market. Call that number, 925-209-8558. And get in on it. I'm telling you, they're looking for investors right now as they're looking to purchase some more multifamily real estate in the state of California, maybe even out of the state of California. But this is a tremendous investment, and they've been building investment wealth for their clients since 2008. So this is a good deal, and you want to get in. It's Tilden Properties. And by the Kehrig Real Estate Team since 1978. They've been helping families buy and sell homes across the Bay Area with a legacy of client first service. Whether you're moving up, downsizing, or making your first purchase, trust the Kehrig Real Estate Team to guide you home. Contact Mike Kehrig today for a free home sale and purchase consultation. Call 925-548-4132 or check out their website at kehrigteam.com. And also by Valone Insurance. This is one of our new sponsors. We're excited about that. Valone Insurance, are you tired of being overcharged for your property insurance? Valone Insurance has multiple options for your home and landlord properties. Save big money on your property insurance. Call Kyle or Ron at Valone Insurance, 925-433-8271. All right, so let's get to what promises to be a very, very busy show. The news coming out this morning that Bob Melvin is out as the San Francisco Giants manager after 2 years. I don't know if it was a surprise. I think some people feel like it was a little bit. Other people didn't. You could hear there was more talk about it, at least in the media, maybe in the last 2 months of the season. That talk was not coming from the Giants necessarily, but from the media. But you weren't sure if this was a reality or not. But it became a reality today. So Bob Melvin out as the Giants manager after 2 years. Just some notes on Bob. He'll be 64 in October. He's been around a long time. He's been a very good manager for a long time. Started in Seattle 2 years, and then he was in Arizona for 5 years. He was in Oakland for 11. That's where he probably had his most success. He had some really, really good teams in Oakland. I was there with Bob the entire time that he was the manager. San Diego, a couple years, and then 2 years here in San Francisco. So all in all, he's been a manager for 22 years at the major league level. 1,678 career wins. That's 20th on the all-time managerial win list in Major League Baseball history. So that's an impressive number. And I just looked out of curiosity. He has more wins as a manager than Tommy Lasorda, than Dick Williams, than Earl Weaver, than Joe Madden, more than Whitey Herzog, more than Billy Martin, just to name some of these guys that he has more wins than. So listen, I know Bob personally, but I'm taking that out of the equation here, but he's been a really good manager for a long time. So let's go over kind of what happened, at least in the last 3 months. If you remember, on July 1st, the Giants exercised Bob's option for 2026. And, a lot of people were kind of curious about why do it. He had an option for next year. And at the time, on July 1st, the Giants were 5 games over 500. They were 45-40, but they were scuffling some. They had lost 11 out of 15. They were in a funk. And I know Buster, he answered this question today. Why was the option picked up at that point? And Buster said, listen, we were trying to give the team a little morale boost. Let them know that, listen, you try to get this team going a little bit. And I think they had confidence that they would get going and that, Bob would be the manager next year. So there was a reason why they did this at the time they did it. And initially it did work. They played well right after that. They won 6 out of 8 after that. But then, boy, the mid-July to mid-August stretch is, I think that stretch is what did in the Giants for the entire year. They climbed back at the end. They got close, but I think, again, if you look at their season and the results of all their games, and you look at mid-July to mid-August, it almost jumps out at the screen at you because it's right in the middle of the season and you're hanging in there. But that stretch, they lost 21 out of 28 games, and many of those were at home. That's when they had the bad stretch at home. And they just could not do anything right. And I think so, the reason for picking up that option, trying to give the clubhouse, trying to give the manager, and hope it wears off and the players a little bit, a morale boost. That's exactly the phrase that Buster used. And I think the fact that, maybe that didn't work, that stretch going into August and then to mid-August, I think that's when things started to be evaluated closer in the manager's office by the front office. I don't know that for a fact. It's just my opinion. But I think it was such a tough stretch, and and I think everybody thought that they would get going again a little bit in August and they would be fine and they'd be in the fight. But that didn't happen, and they did play well at spots in September to get close again. But I do think that was the stretch where, maybe the front office started to look at everything a little bit different, because part of that was the trade deadline. And the Giants made some trades, and that kind of had them feeling like they weren't sure where this team was at. So again, there are a lot of different little things, but I do think that stretch where they lost 21 out of 28 was probably the topper. And so they did pick up Bob's option. He's going to get paid next year, but he's not going to be the manager. And I think a big part of this, you have to remember when Buster took over last year, the manager was already in place. So Bob is the manager when Buster takes over. They competed against each other. Bob is a manager, Buster is a player for a long time. Oakland and the Giants playing, the Babe Ruth series and that type of thing. As far as a relationship, how well they knew each other, I don't know that they really knew each other really at all. Nor would there ever been a time for them to become friends or really have any type of relationship. So really, if you're Buster and you inherit a manager, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if it's a manager that you don't know, I think that you want to get to know this guy. It's very important. And I also think you're going to evaluate this guy as your manager, because you want to learn as much about him as you can in a short period of time, because he's your guy. he's your guy. You want to know what makes him click. So I think you have to build a relationship quickly, and that's not easy to do. I mean, you don't just, hey, we're buddies already. We've known each other for a week. That's not the way it works anywhere, and especially not in this type of situation where you have a head in charge of baseball and then your manager. But they do have to build a relationship, and they have to communicate and learn a lot about each other. That's not always easy to do, but that was the situation. When Buster took over, he has a manager. Now, it's not uncommon. In fact, it's pretty common that somebody who's in charge may want to choose the manager that he wants. I'm not saying that's the case here, but I think that could be part of this. In fairness to Buster, if you were in charge and wouldn't you either know the guy who's managing and have a strong relationship with him, or wouldn't you want to choose? Wouldn't you want to pick who is going to be your manager? This is always a thing. It's a thing really in any sport. So I would not be surprised if that is somewhat maybe part of the equation here. Maybe Buster wants his own guy. Maybe he spent the last year evaluating Bob. Maybe there was things he was unsure about. I don't know. But it's very possible that Buster wants his own guy as the manager. And when he got here, he did not choose the manager. Bob Melvin was already here. And the thing with Buster, and I know him a little bit, I don't know him super well, but he's a really sharp guy, and he really wants to know what you're thinking. I've met with Buster a couple times, like I said, but I don't know him super well, but I have a little bit of an idea what he's all about. And he really does want to know what you're thinking. He wants you, and when he asks you a question, he looks right at you, but not because he's trying to intimidate you. He looks right at you because he really wants to know what your answer is. He wants an answer, and he wants to find out more about you from that answer. If that makes any sense. He's a listener. And so, he's the kind of guy that he really does want to learn more about you, and he will ask you questions. And I think he wants you to be inquisitive, but he also wants you to give me an honest answer. I want to know how you're feeling. And it's a really cool trait to have if you have the ability to listen and really want to evaluate somebody when you're talking to them, but not in an intimidating way. He's sincere about it. Posey is, and Bob Melvin's a little bit different. I mean, he's a little introverted. He's kind of a quiet guy. He keeps to himself. He's a very nice man. We know he's a good manager, but he's a gentleman. He's a very nice man. He's a serious guy. He's a little bit of a no nonsense guy. And he keeps to himself a little bit. And I learned that about Bob, when I was with him for 11 years in Oakland. Be careful. Just, don't just march into his office, stand at the door and say, "Hey, Bob, you got a minute?" I know people who march right into his office. "Hey, Bob, how are you?" It said, "Hey, Bob, you busy? Pop your head in." And you know what? If he's not busy, he's a manager. He's got stuff to do. I mean, he'll sit down and talk to you and it's great, So, so who knows? I mean, there's so many different things going on in this situation, and I think we could sit here and try to figure it all out. That may be grasping at straws a little bit, but the fact of the matter is it's very possible that, Buster wants his own guy. I keep going back to that. And Buster had a press conference today, about this and some of the things that he said, that he felt like they needed a new voice in the room. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Bob lost the clubhouse, because I don't think he did. I mean, the guys played hard for Bob. I mean, there's no question about it. Fans may have not liked this pitching change or that lineup or whatever, but that's the way it is with every manager. But the guys, they like Bob. They played hard for Bob. They had a lot of respect for Bob. It's well-deserved respect. But sometimes maybe you just need a new voice. And that's Buster's point. He felt like they needed a new voice. And Buster's very aware of the franchise and what the franchise means to the fans and to the city, because he was part of that and he saw what success did for the fans and for the city. He's very, very aware of that. And so that's an important part of this too. But really, in this big picture, I don't think Bob did anything wrong. I really don't think it was about managerial decisions with, why did you take that guy out in the eighth inning, or why did you pinch it there? Why didn't you pinch here? Should have butted there. I don't think that had anything to do with this decision. I really honestly don't. Because you can nitpick at managers' decisions, all you want. You could pick the greatest managers of all time and nitpick at those. So I just don't think that was it. I think this is a bigger picture situation, and Buster just wants to make the choice. And he felt like maybe Bob wasn't the right voice, and he was looking for somebody new. That's just my opinion on this. But I wish Bob the best. I do know him personally. I've criticized him some. I've also stuck up for him some. But again, I try really hard to not have my friendship with him come into play there. I know some people think that maybe it does, but part of the reason is I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of the criticizing the manager over everything. I'm just really not. And I'll say this about any manager. That's just not something that I'm really totally into. And it's funny to me, but we heard a lot of criticism about Bob's bullpen use the last couple months of the year. We didn't hear quite as much about it the first 4 months of the year. Well, it was a completely different bullpen. He didn't have the horses he had early on. Sometimes you want the manager to do things. Well, we got to run more. We got to hit and run more. We got to do more stuff. You have to have the personnel to do that. I'm not sure the Giants had the personnel to do that. So again, I'm not a big fan of the just ripping the manager for every single move he made. And it's easy to do because you make these decisions throughout the game, bullpen decisions, and not all of them are right. Not all of them work. Well, as soon as one doesn't work, he gets criticized. Do we ever say, you know what? He really did a good job lining up the seventh inning, eighth inning, ninth inning. We would say that if it worked. So it's just not my thing. But I know a good manager when I see one. I've seen enough baseball, and he's a very good manager. And listen, when I was in Oakland, I saw Bob Guerin manage for over 4 years for the A's. And listen, I saw it. I saw every game. I witnessed it from the broadcast booth. And he was the worst manager I've ever seen. I mean, it was just, we had other broadcasters coming into our booth saying, what is he doing? This happened once a road trip. So I've seen bad. Okay. And most managers have a pretty good idea what they're doing. Sometimes communication isn't great, but I've seen the bottom end of this. I saw where players literally would laugh at him, literally to his face. That's how bad this was. And why it lasted that long, I do not know. But Melvin took over for Bob Guerin, and that's when the success really started in Oakland. So I've seen not good, and I've also seen good, and Bob certainly fits in there. So before we get to the kind of the recap of the season, we got lots of comments. So this was just a big story, so I wanted to spend some time on it. But let's check out some comments. All right, hold on. We got a lot of them, and I appreciate everybody checking in. Hold on, just give me some time here. You know what? Gary checks in very nicely. Gary did not anticipate Bob Melvin being fired. Hope that another team hires him. The guy has done everything but win in the postseason. A lot of speculation about Bruce Bochy returning to the Giants. That is speculation. I think it's kind of easy speculation. It's a narrative that's sort of there. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that's going to happen. Not because Bochy isn't great, and I think he's still a good manager. It's not about Bruce Bochy. I'm not sure that's the route Buster's going to take. There's names out there, and I don't really want to get into names yet because I want to talk to some more people and find out who's real, who's not real in this whole thing. So that's why I'm not going to necessarily get into names tonight because this just happened, and there's a lot of names out there that maybe aren't realistic, and there may be some we don't even know. But I just personally don't think the Bochy thing's going to happen. I think maybe Buster may want to go with somebody maybe in his age group. That may not be the right term, age group, but somebody maybe he knows from his playing days or something like that. That to me fits a little bit better for what I think the Giants are trying to do. So again, I'm not sold on the Bochy thing. I'm not saying it would be, Bochy's great. We love the guy. The success here is unheard of, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's the route they're going to go. So let's see. All right, hold on. Coach Grapper says, if you want a young buck, then how about Hunter Pence? That would be fun. Could you imagine Hunter Pence being the manager? How much fun would that be? Oh, my goodness. I don't think Hunter's got it pretty good. He made a lot of money. He does a nice job on TV. He does all kinds of stuff throughout baseball. He's bouncing all over the place. So I'm not sure Hunter would want the job. That would be entertaining, though. I would say that. But not a terrible idea. Hold on. I don't want to miss any. Bake That Dough. We got to check in with our good friend Bake That Dough, freshly baked cookies. He wants to know why Gary did not anticipate Melvin getting fired. So Bake That Dough is responding to one of the other comments. I don't. It's weird. I don't want to say that I'm completely surprised by this, only because I think that Buster wants his own guy. I keep going back to that. I apologize for that, but I think that's what it is. I don't think I don't think there was anything that Bob did wrong. Like that was. I don't think anybody in the Giants front office is saying, "Wow, that was terrible by Bob." I don't think that was the issue. So, anyways. So there you have it. Bob Melvin is out as the Giants manager after 2 years. 161 and 163 was his record in the 2 years. But he's a good man. He's 64 years old. He'll be 64. And, let's see. Let's see if Bob wants to keep managing, if he gets another job. But whatever he does, he's fine. He's been managing a long, long time. And he's a good man. And he will stick in baseball somewhere. I don't think there's any question about that. So Anyways, all right, let's move on to our next segment. We're going to talk about this Giants season a little bit. Finish 81-81. That's nothing great, right? It is what it is. 42-39 at home, 39-42 on the road. So kind of the ultimate 500 team, unfortunately. Couple things that stick out. The offense issues were there. Really, the first part of the year, it was offense was really good, and then it struggled for a long time. But when it's all said and done, just a few numbers. Giants finished 10th in the National League in runs scored, 7th in the National League in home runs, 5th in walks, 4th in strikeouts. So they struck out a lot, which we're not surprised. They had the fewest stolen bases in the National League, only 68. So yeah, that's an issue. But I just don't know that they had the personnel to steal bases. That's the reality of it. Tyler Fitzgerald could steal bases, but he wasn't getting on base, and then he got sent to AAA. Jung-Hoo Lee is not a big base stealer. He's got decent speed. So, just you got to have the guys. They didn't have the guys. Team batting average of 235. That's not going to get it done. OPS 11th in the National League. So about where you kind of figure. Pitching was decent. 6th best ERA in the National League. They allowed the fewest home runs. 8th in the league in strikeouts. The bullpen overall, even though there was a lot of changes statistically, ended up pretty good. They had the 2nd best ERA, the bullpen did, in the National League behind the San Diego Padres. But of course, the changes in the bullpen, and it became a bullpen of a lot of guys that hadn't pitched a lot in the major leagues the last couple months. But and again, this one is hard to figure out. But the Giants made the 2nd most errors in the National League. The outfield defense was poor. I've said it over and over, and I will spend the entire offseason saying it. The outfield defense has to get better. There has to be a different look in the outfield to improve that defense. I think that's a major issue for this team. Another thing that jumped out to me, Giants struggles against left-handed pitching. They hit just 214 against left-handed pitching. So that's a thing. Too many strikeouts. We know that. We've talked about this a lot, but I'm not a hitting coach. I'm not a hitting expert, but I watch every game just like most of you folks do. I thought they took too many fastballs for strikes early in the count. If you really want to narrow it down, it just seemed like guys were taking fastballs for strikes. Boom, 0-1. And there was a lot. Those guys they didn't want to go early in a count. But sometimes that's the best pitch you hit. And if you take a fastball, you may not. You don't want the first pitch you see to be the best pitch you get to hit. And I thought that happened a lot this year to almost all the hitters. You can look at the analytical numbers. The Giants struggled against power pitchers, guys who threw hard. The 2-strike hitting was not good at all. 0-2 counts, 1-2 counts, 2-2 counts. The averages were, in the mid 150, 140 when there was different 2-strike count. That's an issue. That's where the strikeouts start piling up. So again, those are sort of, narrowing down specific areas, but those are areas that need to get better. And two, I did a segment on this a while back, and I think it was one of the themes of this season, was the streakiness of this group. And I did the numbers for you, and I'm going to do them again because it really jumped out at me, and it's crazy. And it made such a roller coaster season. But starting on June 4th, the Giants on that date were 33-28. So off to a decent start. But think, just listen to this now. And this jumped out, and it still almost makes me chuckle. It's so crazy. From June 4th on, this was how it went. Chronological order to the last day of the season. Okay, you ready? Win 7 in a row, lose 13 out of 18. Win 7 out of 9, lose 12 out of 14. Win 5 out of 7, lose 11 out of 13. Win 13 out of 16, lose 9 out of 11. Finish the season with a 4-game winning streak. Is that not the ultimate streaky? They were streakers. And I don't know that I've ever seen that much good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. And that's what made it such a frustrating and head-scratching season, is you saw these stretches where you're like, oh, they're playing pretty good. And then that would be followed by a stretch where you're just like, what last week they were pretty good. And that's what made for such a frustrating season. They got to play better in the division. We know that they did not play well within the division. 3-10 against the Padres, 4-9 against the Dodgers. Listen, it is what it is. We could sit here and say, how are you going to do that? But that's for the rest of the offseason to figure out how this team gets better. But so the good part about it is there are cornerstone players here that are still right in the middle, the prime of their career. Okay. And that's very important. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think the fans, even though it was I think they like this team. I think they like the players, and they know that these guys are going to be here. So you have cornerstone players to now start to build around. Devers is not going anywhere. He's 28 years old. He's right in the middle of his career. Chapman's 32, but still, he's in the middle of his career. He's got good years ahead of him. Willie Adames is 29, right in the middle of it. Jung-Hoo Lee's 26. Logan Webb is 28. They got a lot of young pitchers. Bryce Eldridge is 20. So there are building blocks there. Is there work to be done to build around those building blocks? Yes, there is. But there's other players too. You got Ramos. What are we going to do with Ramos? You got Gilbert. What are you going to do at second base? You got Bailey catching. So we all know the names, but there are cornerstone players there, real good, talented cornerstone players in the middle of their career. And that to me is a plus. Okay. And before we move to the next segment, shout out to the fans, the Giants fans this year. All said and done, the Giants drew 2.92 million fans to Oracle Park. That's the 7th best number in all of baseball. They averaged 36,121 fans per game. So 7th best in all of baseball. So nice job there. They had an increase in attendance this year of 278,000. That's 3,400 more per game. So a huge increase in attendance. They had a huge increase in attendance last year as well. So I think the fans have been awesome. I mean that. They have been terrific. Coming out, showing up, and they deserve a lot of credit. And you know what? It doesn't go unnoticed. The players see it. Bob Melvin saw it. Buster sees it. They all see it, and they were super disappointed at their performance at home this year, where they didn't always play well at home. Trust me, that bothers them. It does. It really does, because they get it. They see the fans showing up, 35, 38, 40,000 almost every night. And then when you don't win, it wears on the guys. And they were wearing it. There's no doubt about it. But the fans deserve a lot of credit. Again, over 2.9 million this year, and a huge increase from last year. And let's hope that continues. But I guess a shout out to the fans. A very nice performance in 2025 by the Giants fans. So next segment, a quick look at the leaderboard. I always like to see, who won the batting titles, right? Who won the ERA titles? So I thought I'd throw that out there for everybody. Starting with the batting titles in the National League was Trey Turner from the Phillies. Turner hit 304. Think about that. How times have changed in baseball. 304 batting average wins the batting title. In fact, he was the only player in the National League to hit 300. So it gets tougher every year to hit, and the numbers back it up. We talk about it. It's a pitcher's game right now, but statistically, think about that. 304 won the batting title. I remember when I was a kid. That's a long time ago. Trust me. But I mean, George Brett, Rod Carew, 370, 380. Even in the 90s, in the 2000s, guys were hitting 350. Tony Gwynn, 370. Now guys don't even hit 300, right? Aaron Judge in the American League, he won the batting title with a 331 batting average. So that's 331. We'll take that. 6 players in the American League hit over 300, but still, you think about the National League, only one hitter in the entire National League eligible for a batting title hit over 300. That's crazy. But that was Trey Turner. So Turner, Judge win the batting titles. Home run title, Kyle Schwarber in the National League, 56. He had one more than Shohei Ohtani. And Cal Raleigh hit 60 in the American League. Judge had 53. RBI title, Schwarber in the National League, 132. And in the American League, the RBI title went to Cal Raleigh, 125. ERA title, National League, Paul Skeens, 1.97. And in the American League, Tarek Skubal, 2.21. Innings pitched in the National League, Logan Webb, 207. In the American League, Garrett Crochet, 205. 3 guys in all of baseball threw over 200 innings. Webb, Crochet, and Christopher Sanchez from the Phillies. That's it. Another way times have changed in baseball. Only 3 guys over 200 innings pitched. And for Logan Webb, that's the 3rd year in a row that he's led the National League in that category, going over 200 every year. Strikeout title, Logan Webb in the National League. Unbelievable. 224. Crochet in the American League, 255. So Logan Webb has turned himself into, think about that. Think about Logan Webb 3-4 years ago. Sinker, ground ball guy, really good pitcher. He led the National League in strikeouts, 224. Awesome. And the simple wins, whether you think that's how important that is in the pitcher's statistical leaderboards, yeah, it's important, of course. National League, Freddie Peralta from the Brewers won 17 games. In the American League, it was Max Fried from the Yankees who won 19 games. So no 20-game winner this year. Tough to win 20 games now as well in baseball because, the starters, you're just not going as deep into games. And the deeper you go into games, the better chance you have of getting a decision. So anyways, okay, so there's your leaderboard. Kind of fun. Now Trey Turner, Judge. You can tell your friends at work that, hey, guess who won the batting titles? All right, so let's move on to the postseason. This is fun. This is we've been doing this on my show for the last 3 weeks now, narrowing it down. Who's doing what? They're hot. They're not. Who's close? Who's not? Who's fading? Well, now we know. National League, Brewers and the Phillies get the byes in the first round. Number 3 seed Dodgers, 4 seed Cubs, 5th seed Padres, 6th seed Reds. The New York Mets are not on that list. New York Mets with a $350 million payroll, $340, I should say, $340 million payroll, second highest in all of baseball, but they do not make the playoffs. 4 of the top 10 payrolls did not make it this year to the postseason. Mets, Astros, Rangers, and Braves, all in the top 10 in payrolls, but none of those 4 made it to the postseason. So anyways, National League. So let's get this going. Here's the matchups. We'll kick this around a little bit before we head out for the night. So Padres at Cubs. This is a good matchup, right? Pivetta and Boyd is the game 1 pitching matchup tomorrow. All these 4 games, these 4 series all start tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be just a phenomenal day of baseball watching. So the Padres in again, 4th time in the last 6 years. They've been in the postseason, 90 and 72 overall. Of course, they went big at the trade deadline. Those guys helped a lot. They got a couple hitters. They got Mason Miller in that back end of that bullpen. a very good bullpen. Pavetta, they got King, they got Cease, they got Darvish. So the Padres got 4 good starters. Now they're not going to need all 4, obviously, in this first series because it's just a 3-game series. But Padres and the Cubs, and again, the Padres had their really, really good bullpen, very strong late. So that's something to obviously keep an eye on. For the Cubs, first time in the postseason since 2020, they finished 92-70, 50 wins at home. So 50-31 at home. Wrigley, always a tough place to play. And boy, that place is going to be jacked up tomorrow and ready to go for this series. Remember, the Cubs had that great start. They were in first place, and they were just rolling. In fact, they were probably the best team in the National League for a while. They held on to first place till right about mid-July, and then the Milwaukee Brewers just came out of nowhere and started winning and never stopped. And they passed the Cubs, and the Cubs kind of settled in to second place, but they were the number 1 wild card team, the Cubs. So one thing that concerns the Cubs, though, is a guy who probably would have started tomorrow's series opener, Cade Horton, a rookie who's really, really good young pitcher. In fact, he had a chance to win the Rookie of the Year award. He still may win it. But he's got a little rib fracture, and he is out. He's on the injured list. So he cannot come back till October 10th. So that would be the division series. But that's a big loss. Cade Horton, a really good rookie right-hander for the Cubs. So they'll start Matthew Boyd tomorrow. But they did just get Kyle Tucker back. So that's a big plus for their offense. But it's going to be interesting. The Cubs' offense is really, really good. I remember when they played the Giants, just kind of looking at their lineup. They finished 3rd in the league in runs scored, 3rd in the league in home runs. And it's kind of a relentless lineup. The Bush kid has over 30 home runs his first full year. Swanson and Horner, and they have really good players. Carl Armstrong was an MVP candidate for a while this year. And then there's Tucker, and it's a team that's they've scored runs all year. So that's going to be interesting. I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm not a big predictions guy, but I just want you guys to kind of get ready, for this series and for all these series. But Padres and the Cubs, Pavetta and Boyd tomorrow. They split the season series at 3 games apiece. So we'll see if Wrigley Field is the difference. It's going to be a tremendous atmosphere. But the Padres, we've seen the Padres a lot, and I like the Padres team. They grind hard. They can pitch. The bullpen's really good. So, I like this Padres team. I really do. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to all these series. But so the other series in the National League is the Reds, who get the final wild card spot. They are at the Dodgers, and the Dodgers won 5 out of 6 in the season series between these two. Whether that matters or not now, we do not know. But how about this game 1 pitching matchup? Hunter Green, nasty, 100 miles an hour against Blake Snell. I mean, that is as good of a pitching matchup as you will ever see, and that's what we're going to see tomorrow night in game 1 of this wild card series, Reds and Dodgers. Reds 83-79, postseason for the first time since 2020. They finished strong. They held off the Mets. They won 8 out of their last 11. The Mets continue to falter, and the Reds finished tied with the Mets. Reds had the tiebreaker, and Cincinnati gets in as the last wild card team with an 83-79 record. So first year under Terry Francona, and what does Tito do? He gets the Reds to the postseason. He's terrific, and congratulations to Francona and the Reds. Really, the Reds are interesting because they got a really good rotation. We mentioned the Padres have, but the Reds got Green, Andrew Abbott, a very good left-hander, Nick Lodolo, another very good left-hander. They got Zach Littell, they got Brady Singer. They have a surplus of starting pitching, but in this 3-game series, you're only starting 3 guys, obviously. But if they can go Green, Abbott, and Lodolo against, it's going to be Snell, it's going to be Yamamoto, it's going to be Ohtani. I mean, think about these pitching matchups. Man, are they going to be fun to watch. So it's a really talented young rotation for the Reds. It's a talented young lineup as well, but the lineup, for the most part, has not been great. They've struggled to score runs some, and that pitching staff, which has been really good, and they got these starters, have kind of carried them. But it's a young lineup, and it's a young rotation. And they're going to go into Dodger Stadium, hostile territory, and we'll see how they do. The Reds were 8th in the National League in runs scored and 8th in the National League in home runs. So kind of right in the middle of the pack as far as statistics go offensively. And then they take on the mighty Dodgers, 93-69 for the Dodgers, and they're tough at home. I mean, we've seen it. The Giants have struggled there. 55,000. It's loud. It's crazy. And, so they're good at 52-29 at home. That's an excellent. You win over 50 games at home. That's really good. Maybe not quite as dominating this year, the Dodgers, as they have been in the past. They were 35-30 in the second half, but still, this team is built for October. They don't care, how many games they win in the regular season. They had no doubt they were going to win the division, and they did. They're making their 13th straight appearance in the postseason. They're right where they figured they would be. They played well at the end. They won 15 out of the last 20 to finish the season. This is what these kind of teams do. They had all these injuries to their starting rotation, right? So, the first half of the season, Snell hardly ever pitched. Glasnow was out. Kershaw was out. Yamamoto, he's been there for most of the year, but they had a lot of injuries. Well, now not only are all these guys healthy, but they're not overworked because they really only pitched probably half a season. Glasnow didn't pitch a full season. Kershaw didn't pitch a full season. Snell didn't. They're ready to go. It's not like they're sitting on 190 innings and they may be a little bit tired. No. So the Dodgers have it all lined up the way they want. Now, whether they, take it home for the second year in a row, obviously we don't know that, but they're set up exactly the way they want. They're healthy. The pitchers are healthy. The only thing that's a little bit of a concern, their bullpen has been shaky. You cannot have a shaky bullpen in the postseason. It'll lose you games. Looks like they're going to put the youngster Sasaki, who's back off the injury list, in the bullpen. That could be huge. But that's the one thing to keep an eye on with the Dodgers is their bullpen. I mean, they lead the National League in runs scored. They lead the National League in home runs. So can this young Reds team with these really good young starters, can they play with the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium? 3-game series. Who knows? Anything can happen, as we like to say. But, that's kind of the setup for the 2 National League series, which are just going to be great. And, listen, I can't wait to watch all of these games tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday. So let's move to the American League real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Blue Jays and the Mariners have the 2 byes. Blue Jays are the number 1 seed, so they have home field advantage for however long they go in the postseason. And the Mariners, they'll get this first round bye, though. So those 2 teams will get action on Saturday. That's when the division series starts. And then the Guardians 3 seed, Yankees 4 seed, Red Sox 5 seed, Tigers 6 seed. So think about these 2 matchups. How great is this? We've talked about the Tigers and the Guardians for the last month, right? One team is flying high. The other one's going in the tank, right? It all comes down. It all comes down. It all comes down. And it ends up that the Guardians have this great comeback. They take over the Tigers, win the division. Tigers are now the 6th seed. So Tigers still get in, right? And now who plays in the first round? That's right. Tigers at the Guardians. I mean, how awesome is that? It'll be Skubal and Williams, the pitching matchup tomorrow in game 1 of the series. Detroit, 87-75 on the year. Listen, we know about huge collapse. I mean, it was a huge collapse. But they still make the postseason. They were 28-36 in the second half, did not play good baseball. Guys who had good first halves had terrible second halves. And it's hard to believe it. They had an 11.5 game lead. 11.5 game lead on August 23rd. That was not over the Guardians. Guardians were in 3rd place. 11.5 game lead on August 23rd. And they lost it. They lost it. What can you say? Cleveland never lost. Detroit scuffled. This happens, but doesn't happen very often. But here's the thing. This is interesting. Kehrig Skubal could have pitched yesterday in the regular season finale. He did not. So he, possible Cy Young Award winner last year. I mean, this guy's nasty. We've all seen him pitch. He is filthy, nasty, awesome. Okay. Well, now, because he didn't pitch yesterday, he is ready to go for game 1. So the Tigers are feeling pretty good, even though they had this big collapse and now they got to go on the road and try to win a 3-game series in Cleveland. They have Skubal going in game 1. And that's huge. Jack Flaherty, Casey Mize, a couple other guys that'll probably go in games 2 and 3 if it goes 3. For the most part, Tigers are pretty healthy offensively. It's just, can they put what happened at the end of the year behind them, take a deep breath? We're in the postseason anyways. It's just a 3-game series on the road. We do this who knows how many times every year, right? So this is going to be great. And the Guardians, 88-74, second straight division championship, for the Guardians. Remember last year they went to the ALCS, but they lost to the Yankees 4-1. The Guardians, they're such an interesting team. But yet, here they are again. 7th time in the postseason in the last 10 years. But they haven't won a World Series since 1948. That's the longest drought in Major League Baseball. Now, I say longest drought, but they have won one. There are teams that have never won one. But from 1948 till now, that's a long, long time. So the Guardians, this is what happened. On July 8th, they're 42-48. Think about that, 42-48. And you're closing in on the All-Star break here. They're 15.5 games back in 4th place. That's not good. That's not good. September 1st, they're still 10.5 games out of first place on September 1st. Okay? So what happens? The Detroit Tigers lose 13 out of their last 16 games. The Cleveland Guardians win 19 out of their last 23 and win the division by 1 game. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I believe that 15.5 game deficit that the Guardians had out of first place is the largest comeback in Major League Baseball history. I'm pretty sure that I read that somewhere. That's just craziness, right? I mean, that's craziness. So anyways, it's interesting team. The Guardians, they play really good defense. They're fundamentally sound. They run the bases well. It's these little things they do, right? All these little things that they do. But yet, offensively, Cleveland has scored the fewest runs in the American League. Fewest runs in the American League. But they pitch, their bullpen is good, and they do all these fundamentals. And what happens? They win the division, even though they have scored the fewest runs in the American League. That's pretty amazing if you really think about it. So anyways, that's going to be a fun matchup just because we've been talking about these two teams for like a month now. So Tigers, Guardians tomorrow. Skubal and Williams is the pitching matchup I'll be watching. And the final postseason wildcard matchup, how about this? Red Sox at Yankees. I mean, come on. Red Sox at Yankees. Red Sox, the number 5 seed. Yankees, the number 4 seed. Yankees. So Yankees were the number 1 wildcard team. Red Sox, number 2. How about this pitching matchup? Crochet and Fried. I mean, that's these pitching matchups tomorrow. I mean, come on, man. I mean, how much fun is this going to be? And the Red Sox, 9-4 against the Yankees this year. So the Red Sox are not worried about going to Yankee Stadium. They've been there. They know the drill. These two teams know each other. No secrets here. It's just going to be awesome baseball to watch, and it's just a 3-game series. So Boston wins 89 games this year into the postseason for the first time since 2021. So they've been out for a while, but they're back in it, and they got Crochet for game 1. And then they got Bello or Giolito's out now. He's got a bad elbow. At least he's out for this series. I shouldn't say bad elbow, but he's felt his elbow a little bit, so he is not on the roster for this series. And Giolito would probably be pitching game 3, but now I'm sure they're probably thinking, well, let's get him healthy, and if we can advance, maybe then we could have him. But and they got that big fella in the bullpen, Aroldis Chapman, who, it seems like he's been around forever, but he may be having the best year of his career. Aroldis Chapman, his ERA is 1.17. Remember when he started with the Reds, and then we've seen him with all these different teams. It's like, and he's always been good, but man, he's throwing over 100 miles an hour again. And so the Red Sox got that big fella sitting on the back end, and that's a big deal because the Yankees bullpen has been a little bit shaky. And again, you don't want to have a bad bullpen going into the postseason. So Red Sox will be without Roman Anthony, the terrific young player that they gave a big contract to. Unfortunately, he's out. Man, it would have been fun to see him in the postseason at Yankee Stadium. Left-handed hitter, but Anthony is out. So Boston has had a big year from Trevor Story. Bregman's been good, went healthy. So they got some of these. Durant has been good. And some of their veteran guys have really carried this team. But Red Sox are interesting. At 89 and 73, not too shabby. Yankees won 94 games. Remember, the Yankees tied the Toronto Blue Jays for the top spot in the AL East, but the Blue Jays had the tiebreaker. So the Yankees go from having a first-round bye and having the best record in the American League to the number 4 seed and the number 1 wild card. Think about that. That's tough sledding, right? But that's the way it is. They didn't have the tiebreaker. But again, Yankees good at home, and they finish hot. They finished the season on an 8-game winning streak. So that's pretty darn good. So 8th time in the last 9 years they're in the postseason. Nothing new here. They're good every year. Go to the World Series last year, lose to the Dodgers. But they played well the last couple months. They played well at the end of the year. And, the Yankees, they're always a force. And, they got Fried, Rodon, 2 of the best pitchers in the American League, a couple of left-handers that they can throw back-to-back in any series. And Heel's back, Luis Heel. And they got a young guy by the name of Cam Schlittler. Say it carefully. Don't screw it up. And he's been really nasty for the Yankees. And he could be a big part of what the Yankees do in the postseason, whether it's coming in relief early or even a little bit later in the game with the questions in the bullpen. So keep an eye on that guy, Cam Schlittler, a right-hander with great stuff. So, so that's Aaron Judge, he's got a real good chance to win the MVP again. We'll see what he does in the postseason. But the Yankees, first in the league in runs, first in the league in home runs. The Red Sox, third in the league in runs. So a couple of really good offenses squaring off in this one. And, that's just, really, that's 4 great series. If you just think about it, I think it Cubs, Padres, 2 really good teams who for much of the year felt like, hey, you know what? We're probably going to win our division. So then you got the Dodgers and the Reds, a young upstart team against the mighty Dodgers. Then you got the 2 American League teams, 2 American League series. You got the Yankees and the Red Sox, which that explains itself. And then you got these 2 teams that were headed in opposite directions. Everybody's talking about, Tigers and the Guardians. So it's just going to be great. And it's 3-game series, Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's it. Moving on. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a fun 3 days of baseball, and I hope everybody sits back and enjoys it. So that's it for the show. I think we covered everything for tonight, all the important stuff. And again, good luck to Bob Melvin, whatever he does moving forward as he is out as the Giants manager. So hope you enjoyed the show. I'm going to be gone for a couple days out of town, but I'll be back this weekend, and we'll review what is going on in the MLB postseason. We have one more question from Bake That Dough. We got to get Bake That Dough in there. What do you make of Buster saying he wants someone who's obsessed with details, obsessed with getting most out of the players? Did Bob not bring that? No, listen, my thing about that, I don't think Buster would say that if he was trying to, that's not something he would say if he felt that Bob wasn't doing that. I just think that's what he wants out of his manager, but he wants to pick. I don't think Buster would throw Bob under the bus like that and say, well, this is what we want from our manager, meaning, well, maybe Bob didn't do that. I don't see that happening. I don't, but that's a fair question. It is something that Buster said, but I think part of this is on the players too. You're in the big leagues. There's fundamentals in baseball that you should know from when you're in high school. So when you get to the big leagues, you really should know where to be on a cutoff spot, right? And that's the manager's fault if you don't. I don't know. Anyways, all right, that's it for the show. I appreciate everybody checking in. Tonight's show brought to you by, as always, Tilden Properties, Bay Area-based, family-owned. Tilden Properties, building investment wealth for their clients since 2008. You want to invest with these people. They're looking for investors right now. Call them at 925-209-8558. It's tildenproperties.com. And by the Kehrig Real Estate Team since 1978. The Kehrig Real Estate Team has been helping families buy and sell homes across the Bay Area with a legacy of client-first service. Whether you're moving up, downsizing, or making your first purchase, trust the Kehrig Real Estate Team. Family-owned, good people. Call them at 925-548-4132. That's KehrigTeam.com. And by Valone Insurance. Valone Insurance, are you tired of being overcharged for your property insurance? Has multiple options for you for your home and landlord properties if you want to give them a call. Save big money on your property insurance. Call Kyle or Ron at Valone Insurance, 925-433-8271. That's it for tonight's show. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I hope you enjoyed it. We got new videos coming out as always, and we're going to concentrate on the postseason now with the postseason starting tomorrow. And we're going to keep a close eye on the NFL and the 49ers who play on Thursday night. We'll continue to have our NFL segment for almost every show. So hope you're enjoying everything and I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. That's it for tonight. I'm Glen Kuiper. Have a good one, everybody.